So what we're going to do is actually we're going to share this information. I am setting everything up, make sure we are running good. How's everybody out there? I know there's a lot of people. I'm checking the toggles here. So, all right, we are here. We're going to get started in a second to make sure everything is good. It is Doc with Cross Media with Reach and also with Immersion. Let me check one more thing here. And we want to make sure our guests are good. Here we go. I knew it was coming up at some point. So we're going to do some switching. All right, we've locked that. Give me a second. We're going to get everybody shared. Restream is always finicky. Let's see. Let me. All right. So, how's everybody doing this evening? We want to make sure you guys are able to put in your chat. We want to make sure all this is working. And I am looking for one more spot. Where are we? Okay, I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. So, we are talking about a series, and I wanted to share this platform with people that are able to give some really good information, some people that I've met just within the last couple of months. So we're going to give everybody a chance. If I want to make sure that they are shared live and they are good. All right. That's what I'm looking for right there. And I'm just going to go ahead to yours, sir. Soon as you see it, make sure, like I said, you want everybody to link on with you guys. And I'm just going to shoot it another way to you guys too. So that should. All right. So we are in. We're going to still make sure that everybody's able to be a part of this. So we are talking about some really good stuff. I've got some really great guys here that has a very good business. I always say we want to support local business, support especially Christian businesses. So we're going to talk about stewardship of finances. We're talking about, do you want to buy a house? And I had so many people that I'm very eager to learn. I'm very eager to take as much information as I can. And I'm the lucky one because once I get this recorded, I get to share it with them, but I already got it. So I'll be going back and writing notes probably for the next couple of months. But we are meeting with Mr. Thomas and Mr. Brown. We've got two really great businesses. If you've been on Facebook, I just saw even a home from Mr. Clay that I looked at, was just like, if I only could. But tonight we're going to be getting basic one-on-one. So I want both these fine gentlemen to introduce themselves, give a little background of themselves. I'm going to be working on some other things to make sure that everybody's able to jump on. And whoever wants to start, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first. My name is Clay Thomas, and I am a realtor with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate here in Paulding County. I got a brand new listing. If you see my Facebook later on, in Douglasville. So I work in Douglas, Carroll County, Bartow, Cobb, Paulding. But I live in South Dallas. My wife and I, Amanda, have 4 kids, and so they keep me on my toes. That's for sure. Before real estate, which I've been doing since early 2021, I was a full-time student and discipleship pastor, and so that was my life really before real estate. I was, just spent my life, first half of my life, just investing into teenagers and their families, and just since, again, February of 2021, just really felt God's call. And I say that because it really was a call. People are like, man, why did you jump out of ministry? And I'm like, man, I didn't. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed every second. I've been able to help so many different people that I never would have met, and maybe some that never would have stepped foot in a church. But I've just been blessed. God has provided, and just loved every second of it. And this guy beside me, I've really knew from our youth ministry days. It's kind of a funny story. He was the interim student pastor before I went to Lost Mountain Baptist Church off Dallas Highway in Powder Springs. And so he was the interim pastor then before I came in, so he kind of paved the way. And then as I exited that church, I kind of got him to come back in, and he served as the interim student pastor at that point too. So, but the last 2.5 years, we've been blessed to be able to help a lot of people buy homes, and so it helps for me to have a mortgage lender that I can send people to that I know is going to care about them. He'll tell you his background too, and you'll hear his heart pretty quickly. But we've just been able to form a great partnership further in the kingdom, and then God's taking care of our families, and it's a beautiful thing that we're able to work so closely together. So I'll let Lee tell you a little bit about himself.
Wonderful, thank you.
My name is Lee Brown. I am a mortgage lender with North Star Lending, just over in Marietta, West Cobb. I'm licensed all throughout the Southeast, though, so I can help you in pretty much in any southern state. As Clay mentioned, I grew up in Marietta, not too far from where we're at now, but I was a youth pastor and associate pastor for almost 20 years. So really loved the student ministry aspect of it. Played football at Georgia Tech, then finished that, went to ministry for a long time. And then as I kind of transitioned out into the lending world, it's really been fun to help people make progress in that side of life as well, too. I have 3 kids, 2 daughters, and 1 son. They're 8, 6, and 3. So they keep us busy, and enjoy working with Clay and enjoy helping people make progress in the home buying side.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what we're really just talking about tonight, and I got so many questions from different individuals as far as just, hey, I want to buy a home, first time buyer, or, what do I do as far as my credit, size of house? What if I'm someone that I had a house before, things messed up, I want to come back? We really just want to do one-on-one, but I also want you guys to really just talk about some things that maybe you said, if I had an opportunity to share information with people, I would say this to help people out. So first question I know that I brought up that was brought to me was just simply, hey, I want to buy a home. Like, if you had an opportunity to tell someone and really sit down, which I know you guys do all the time, what would be those first steps? As far as someone says, this is my first time, I want to get a home, what should I look for? I don't really know the steps. What should I do?
And we get that a lot. I've been blessed. And I love working with first-time home buyers. I remember, 16 years ago when my wife and I were getting ready to buy our first house, we were completely clueless. We really were. We were just completely clueless. But we had some good realtors and some good lenders that came alongside us and really helped. So, one thing that I always love to do is to preface, conversations with what I just said. And I do the same with Lee. A lot of lenders, they love buyers that have that 750 plus credit score and money in the bank. But one thing that Lee and I always do is we want to help every single person. Okay. Lee says it well, whether it's a deal now, whether it's 6 months or years down the road, we want to go ahead and start forming that relationship. You mentioned credit repair. We want to look at if we don't have that initial conversation and kind of figure out where you are now and then where you want to go, we can't help you get there. And so that's what I would always tell people. Let's have a conversation. I'm not salesy. This guy's not salesy. We just want to help. And I mean that from my heart. If we can help you down one path, we'll go that way. If it's going to be a while and we need to help you with some credit things, Lee can help you go through your credit report and say, hey, this is where I would encourage you to go. And so, for me, Lee having the same heart, that's just kind of how we work together. We've done, honestly, my first deal we ever did together. The guy's like, I can't buy a house right now. And then he had a conversation with Lee, and he was a lot closer than he thought. And we were able to help him, and he bought his. That was my first client. From a guy saying, I'll talk to him, but I don't think I can buy right now. And Lee was able to help him do some things, and just real quickly, his credit popped up, and he was able to purchase his dream house.
Okay.
I would say as well too. It's just have a conversation. A lot of people will come to Clay, and Clay will send them to me to get it started. But when you're having that first conversation, it is just that. It's a conversation. I'm not going to try to pull your credit in the first 3 minutes or get you to fill out an app. Then we'll talk. it's I'll ask you a few questions to hear that person's goals and say, hey, I want to set this thing up from the beginning, how you are, what you want. And it's always so funny. Nine times out of 10, you can almost hear the anxiety on that person's voice in the first 3 minutes. And by the end, when we're done 15 minutes later, they just sound so relaxed because it wasn't anything high pressure. It wasn't anything where I'm telling them, no way, you're wasting your time. It was, hey, let's figure out here your goals and let's start that. Just take it step by step. And so you can hear people say that I'm not just some big bad banker that wants to see your bank statements. That I'm a person, and we're going to work together as a team to try to accomplish your goals. And so people get super relaxed. To me, that's the first step. If somebody doesn't know where to start, you don't have to have it all figured out in the first 3 minutes. You don't have to go online and do all the research yourself, but have those conversations and know it's going to be conversational.
Yeah.
You're not passing a test in the first 5 minutes.
Okay. Is it a different approach when it comes to, let's say, someone who is one person? They're not buying a home for a family versus someone who's coming in and says, we're married, we've got 2 kids. Like, is it a different approach? Is it kind of the same? Like, how would you guys, as far as someone says, hey, I'm a single person, I just want my own place for the first time, versus a family's looking for their first home?
No, it's really the same type process because I've worked with a lot of both. And so it's, first of all, we want to kind of figure out what their goals are. We talk, I give them my background because, one thing that I really want to do is develop friends for life. I mean, it's more than just business, to me. I mean, all the deals that I've done over the last couple of years, I could reach out to any of those folks right now and we talk just like we hadn't missed a beat. And so that's one thing that I do pride myself on doing. And so, no, it's really the same process. Trying to figure out what kind of house they want. Do they want a condo? Do they want a little townhouse? Do they want a ranch on 50 acres? We've done it all. And so I think that's the first important thing is that I kind of figure out if they come to me first, what their goals are and kind of give Lee a little something to go on. And then, send them Lee's information. Or either, honestly, a lot of times they'll turn around and they'll go ahead and call Lee themselves, because they'll be ready to get the ball rolling after our conversation.
Okay. So what would you say are those key things that definitely anyone, whether single, whether the family, what are those key things they need to bring to the table that's going to help them to start that journey?
I think one, they need to have the drive for it because it is a good bit, right? I mean, it's a lot of details, a lot of documents. They need to understand that there is a lot to the process. But when you do have real estate and mortgage professionals helping you, coming alongside of you, we'll help you figure out what you need and when you need it. And so I'll let Lee answer the rest of that question. But there's certain things that right up front, and I've been on 3-way. We do that sometimes. I love doing a 3-way call with Lee because I love to hear how he responds and kind of the questions he asks, because it helps me when I'm kind of having that initial conversation too. But tell them about those first 3 minutes, those things that you were trying to information you're trying to get.
So it really depends on the person and really like the season that they're in. Clay's going to try to figure out when they're talking to him about what the physical aspects of the home that they want and hear their goals. I want to hear financial. And so really, there's times we have to kind of manage expectations in that initial call to where, you'd be surprised how many people, look at a $600,000 house and they want their monthly payment to be $1,000 a month. And so one of the first questions we'll ask is we'll say, hey, what is a good, comfortable monthly payment for you with taxes, insurance, and everything? And because we want to kind of find that out, because if we know they're looking at one that is a little bit bigger house, and then we're going to ask them, hey, what is your in terms of down payment, do you have any money set aside? And then we're going to know if they tell us, oh yeah, I've got 3% to put down, and they're looking for a $800,000 house, and they want their payment to be at a certain price point. We know we're going to have to manage some expectations in a good way. So really, even after that initial call, we'll send out a document to that person, basically just to say, hey, this is what your transaction could look like. Now, this is a sample setup. It's a scenario, but we want to equip you with that knowledge. So as far as things that you need, you really just need to have something in your mind to basically say, hey, this is what I want. This is the monthly payment that I need. Obviously, there are things like job history that you need to have, income that we need to have, an idea of what your credit score may be. But you don't need any of that for the first conversation. We'll decide after that first, we call it discovery. Okay. After that first discovery conversation, we'll decide in the next 5 minutes if you're ready to take an application, which is then we won't even talk about income a lot of times in that first few moments. So it's really, like we said earlier, it's really just hearing your goals to start, but then being willing to kind of take that next step. Unfortunately, and man, people are so protective of their credit reports and credit scores right now that, sometimes it's really hard for us to pull credit because people don't want their credit being pulled. And unfortunately, we have to have that. And so we do have the ability to do soft pulls and kind of see where we're at.
Explain a soft pull real quick.
So a soft pull is going to give me the information, but it's not going to be a hard inquiry in your score.
Is that 100% accurate?
For the most part, it's pretty close, but it's a lot better than Credit Karma or even Experian that people are paying for. It's a tri-merged credit report, but it is a soft pull.
Right.
We can't close a loan under a soft pull, but we can at least see where we're at on a soft pull. But I would much rather do that hard inquiry just to know where we're at. Your credit report's good for 120 days after that. So the more information that I can find out earlier, it allows me to be a better resource for that person moving forward. And so that's, we'll have that initial conversation. We'll figure out if it's time to take an application. And just that would probably be one of the things to answer your question. What is needed up front is just that willingness to let somebody pull your credit. And I don't know, a credit inquiry, a hard inquiry is going to ding your score probably 12 to 15 points for 1 month. But if you pay your other bills on time, you don't have any other new inquiries or open up any new lines of credit, the following month it'll bounce right back to where it was. And so it's not going to be something that's going to ding you 60 points for the next 6 months. So anyway.
Okay. We already got a question here. So we have Tina who said, I bought my first home almost 2 years ago. I'm getting ready to move from Arizona to North Carolina, but my home value has decreased. Would you recommend selling for what I owe or do a crossover where someone can get my interest rate, or is renting a good idea? Sounds like there's several questions going on there, but.
And that's hard because there's, pretty much everywhere, home values have increased. And so I would just encourage you, Tina, really speak to a real estate professional out there, really have somebody do the numbers for you just to make sure that's the case. And then, I would say this, and I'll let Lee kind of speak to this in a minute, but, an assumable mortgage is really not recommended. They're really hard to do anyway. And that's what she was asking. So somebody comes in and they can assume the mortgage at that particular rate. And so, and those, I've seen that some. I don't know if you guys have seen that some, but it's really hard to do because depending on how much, is still owed on the house, that person has to bring the rest of it, basically either in cash or get another, people speak to this, get another a loan to kind of, is that like a bridge? Like if they're trying to assume that loan, they've got to bring that money to the closing table somehow. And so I know there's different options, but and I know the last part, she said something about or rent it out. Is that what she was saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would it be better to rent? She said, would it be, she said, or is renting a better idea? Would renting be a better idea?
I'll let you go.
Is it are they by chance a veteran? Is it a VA loan? So all the loan programs, look at those differently. Conventional loans, you're going to have a really hard time and probably not be able to do that as an assumable mortgage. Veterans loans makes it just a little bit easier. I would be really curious, and I'm not an expert in that Arizona market, but it would really surprise me that home value has decreased that much. Like I'm really curious about that. But there are ways that we can basically offset that home in Arizona, depending on the loan program, where we can't really give you credit for the income that you may get from renting it out, but we can basically kind of omit that payment. Okay, FHA.
Yeah.
So there's a way that we can kind of omit that payment. So thinking through what you'd be able to rent it, you have somebody to help you kind of manage that, could be a really good option for you to rent it out instead of selling it.
You can cover North Carolina, right?
Okay. So
great last name, by the way.
Is that your cousin?
I told all my cousins to call up to the show.
Okay. Hey,
I'm just kidding. I don't know T.
No. Hey, have them come. The more the merrier, because this is about definitely sharing and giving people an opportunity just to ask questions. Your platforms like the Dave Ramsey's and other platforms where there's 10,000 trying to hit one line, whereas you have two individuals like yourself that had same information, just as valuable. Now people have an opportunity, they can ask those questions. So that's why we have platforms like this. So I guess another question that I was sent earlier during the week, as I was asking, like, what are those first things that you want to do as far as getting prepared? Is there anything that would literally just kind of be like a red flag as far as whether it's I heard earlier about, let's be real about, hey, I want this payment for this, size house. Was it something that just kind of goes, oh, wait a minute, let's pull the brakes and let's come to a reality check?
I think one of the biggest things is, I'm kind of having that initial conversation. I'm not necessarily getting into the numbers side of it, but I do want to find out, hey, what do you do for work? Tell me about your family. I just kind of want to figure out their situation. And it could be, a lot of times it is a lead that I'm getting that wants to look at a house that's a certain price. Let's say somebody sees a Zillow lead or a Zillow home, and I ended up getting that lead through Zillow, and they want to look at a $400,000 house. And so, just kind of talk through some things, and income, I think, is going to be a bigger one. Lee and I have worked through some things recently as far as, there's different mortgage guidelines as far as how long you've been at a particular job, and different loan programs have different guidelines there. But I think that's one, having that consistent income. I know if you are self-employed, which I am now, and I bought a house about a year ago, so there's more hoops, I say, so to speak, that you have to jump through as far as guidelines and having that particular income for a certain amount of time. But that's some of the things I try to find out, is kind of as far as their work. Now, we have been able to help people on disability and Social Security type incomes. Those people can qualify as well, for sure. And so that's what I don't know if you have anything else that you.
Yeah, I'd be really careful about, just how I say hard stop. We never say, hey, this is a hard stop. We say, hey, you can't do it right now. Never ever feel like it's a hard stop where you can't pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody. But once we get started, there are waiting periods for bankruptcies, foreclosures, and things like that. So that would be something we're not going to say hard stop. We're just going to say, hey, you may have to wait another year or two after that. I mentioned, self-employed borrowers, but you'd be surprised how many times that we pick up the phone from someone, and I closed the loan not too long ago for somebody that had been turned down from two other lenders that just didn't know the guideline accurately, and they didn't see an easy deal, and so they just didn't return this person's call, and then we got them in a home. So there are all kind of, I don't want to say workarounds, but different loan programs look at different things differently. Like job history confuses a lot of people. Self-employment can confuse a lot of people as well too. So never ever feel like there's a hard stop when you're doing your research on the internet. But there may be some things that make us wait once we kind of get into the details.
So the other thing that I was getting from a lot of people, they were all saying, well, what about this time period as far as what's happening with just the economy, the whole scare that is still out there as far as just, and I had someone type in, it was like, hey, ask them about inflation. I was like, why don't you get on here and ask them? But what do we do? Like, is there like a big, because like I said, I'm learning, and hey, counseling, I'm good at it. Finances, saving money, that type of stuff, You know, I'm one that admit it automatically from the jump. So in this market right now, like, what are some of those things that you guys kind of see people are just kind of cringing at, or maybe people, well, maybe it's the reverse. Maybe people are like, oh, this is the perfect time to do it. So, you know, what would you tell people that are just asking questions when they're watching the news and they're just going, you know, we don't want to be in an apartment anymore, or, you know, we don't want to be in this type of living space. We want to be able to do this, but everything out there is saying don't do it. So what do we say?
Well, I would just tell you one thing, that, you know, each and every situation is different. And, you know, one of the goals that I have is to get people out of renting, if at all possible. You know, with renting an apartment. And look, some people I understand have to do that. There was a time in my life when I did that. Okay. But if there's anything that, you know, we can do to get somebody out of a rental, that way you're building equity, you know, you have an asset under your name, you know.
So for young people that are watching right now, what is the equity? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. All right. So, you know, in other words, when you're renting, that 100% of that goes to somebody else, right? Let's say when I'm paying my mortgage each month, you know, there's part of that goes to paying off interest and my insurance and all those kind of things. But there's another side of that goes towards my house each month. And so that means each month I can say I own that house maybe a little bit more, right? I'm closer and closer to full ownership in that house. And so that's what I always say. My line is, if there's any way that, so you want to buy a house, that we can get people out of renting, you know, that's my goal. Just because at that point, then they become better stewards, you know, their finances, their resources that God's given them. And so that's kind of, Lee has a phrase he likes to use when it comes to rates and all that. But, you know, look, it's, you know, we live in an area in the metro where people are always, you know, moving in and out. It's all, I've been extremely, you know, busy, you know, even when, you know, rates have been up in the 7s, you know, I've been busy. So I've probably like, you know, 30 or so deals in the last, you know, 12 months. And so I've been blessed to be really busy. So people are still buying. So don't believe everything you hear on the media. Mm-hmm. And that's another story. But one thing that Lee and I have been really able to do is to help people with rates with what's called like a rate buy down. And so right now you look at rates, and man, they've gone down some. We'll let you speak to that a little bit in a minute. But, you know, rates have gone down a little bit. But, you know, we've been able to get buyers sometimes even 3% lower than the current rate.
Oh, wow. And
it costs them $0. Wow. All right. Now that is a temporary rate buy down. And so let's say, for instance, a 3-2-1 buy down. All right. This is 100% paid for by the seller. And so it doesn't cost the buyer anything, which right now the sellers are doing closing costs again. You know, if you're looking to buy, you know, the market has changed. It's not, you know, you're not getting 10 offers per house and it's off the market in 1 or 2 days. Prices are kind of coming down a little bit now, and there's some flexibility usually there, unless the house is really, really updated. If the house is really, really updated, people still are paying premium, and I am seeing multiple offers. But, you know, sellers give those closing costs for that rate buy down. And let's say a 3-2-1, for the first year, it's 3% off the current rate. Second year, it's 2% off that rate. Third year, it's 1%. And that fourth year, it goes back to the current rate when the contract was signed. And so, and then with that, you know, you can refinance, you know, because we do expect rates to continue to go down. Maybe even, I've heard even maybe in the 5s by the end of this year. We'll see. It depends on what you read. But from what I'm seeing, I do think that it's going to keep trending, you know, down slightly. But you want to talk a little bit about that as far as the rates and what you tell people when they say, I can't buy right now.
Yeah. So here's every person that has ever bought a house throughout the history of time, all right, has asked the question, is now the right time to buy a house? All right.
That's always going to be.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what the economies do. It doesn't matter what rates are doing. And that is, you know, we don't want to be flippant about it. Like that, it's a great question to ask, but everybody's always asked that question. Okay. And there has been a lot of anxiety to it. But what I don't want people to do is ask that question at a macro level. Like, hey Alexa, is now the right time to buy a house, or or getting on Chat GPT and asking that question, right? Like, you're going to get a broad stroke there. We do want you to ask that question at a micro level, right? Like your setup, right? Clay bought last year, rates had risen. I bought last year, rates had risen. It was the right time for us to buy a house. And people get married, people have kids, people want to downsize, people get new jobs. Okay, so we want you to ask that question, but we don't want to say, man, the housing market is crazy. Is now the right time to buy a house? We want you to have a conversation with a mentor, with a pastor, with your parents, with your spouse, with us, to basically say, is now the right time for you to buy a house? All right, has your family grown? Has your family shrunk? If you finally kicked the kids out of the house and you want a ranch instead of steps, and so if you can answer yes to that question, is now the right time for you to buy a house? Then yes, that now's the right time to buy a house. We can help you qualify for it. We can see if you qualify for it. But one of the things that I tell people is, if you're paying $200 a month rent, living in somebody's basement, and you're comfortable there, now's probably not the best time to buy a house. But but still have a conversation if that's in your goal, man. If home ownership is one of your goals, back when we played football or whatever sport you play or whatever chorus you belong to, the coaches didn't show up on Saturday and they didn't just roll the ball out of the field and say, let's go play football, right? You practice, you put in a game plan, you think about what you need to do, what you need to get better at. And so a large part of what we do is help people put a game plan in place for home ownership. So really, the thing that we tell people, and a lot of times, I used to be a preacher. I can just keep talking and talking and talking. But what we tell people is let it. It may be for your season in life where you're going, man, I want to move. Do I really need to move? Maybe not. But a lot of times we find out that it's property specific. That go, hey, go ahead and take that step, have that conversation, see if it's feasible for you, and then just sit back and wait and let Clay, send you properties or put you on their drip search, where if you find it may not be the right house for you, then you're going to pass on it. But if a month or 2 or 3 months later, all of a sudden your dream house that pops up, then you're ready to go and make that offer and get it. What we tell people, and we want people to be comfortable with the payment they start out with. But this is the quote that I give people that seems to resonate the most. This is the home that you're going to have for the next 5, 10, or 15 years, but it's not the rate and payment you're going to have for the next 5, 10, or 15 years. At some point, interest rates are going to get down to a spot where you can refinance. And for those of you that don't know, a refinance is basically just paying off your old loan and starting over anew at current market conditions. Okay? And so to me, the question has always been, is now the right time to move? Don't ask it huge, ask it small for your personal family, and then have conversations with people that you can trust that'll give you information to help you make a decision.
So, and again, like I was saying, and especially being able to share this with just anybody. Like I said, I'm learning so much now. My brain is already like, take it in. And it's encouraging to hear gentlemen and brothers like yourself that are telling people like, look, here's the reality of it, and at the same time, we want to work with you, want to walk with you in this journey. And I'm hoping that there's young people that will watching this now or will watch it later and just say, hey, when I get out there, and I've had those conversations with a lot of young people, young adults that are already saying like, I'm looking to the future and I just want basic information that they may not get from some people. This would be one of those opportunities to get that. What would you say are some don'ts? Like, what would you say are some, I'm trying to see how to formulate my question. We got people that are looking for those things that they basically need in the beginning, but what would be some of those things that, sit down and really think through some things and say, this is kind of a don't. We don't want you to go in this direction. I heard something earlier of, you're buying too much house and you've got, you're getting paid this. What were some of those things that kind of stand out? Or maybe even some things that you guys have heard that you just like, as a business person, you're smiling, you want to work with them, but in your brain, you're like, oh, no.
The number one thing I see, and it blows me away, how many people, the average car payment in America now is $807 a month. It amazes me how many people bought a car 3 months ago, and they might be 22, 23, 25, and they would qualify easily for a home, and if it weren't for that $800, $900 car payment. So really watch, if buying a home is on your horizon, man, get the home part taken care of first, because a large part of what we do is debt to income ratio, right? And so we want to, that huge car payment can cause some problems. So really, and it always amazes me that it's been a month or 2 or 3 months before they want to buy a house that they just bought that car. And so, just watch your spending at that point in time. The other thing that I would see is there is absolutely nothing wrong with a starter home, right? Especially for our young people.
So what's a starter home?
Yeah, so a starter home is just going to be your either 2 or 3 bedroom house, 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, just something. I think, last year where the rates were so low, talking about, in the 2s and 3%, even, people in their early 20s, when they were able to buy that house that, it's, $350,000 house, which is, nice house. It's, on a big lot, really remodeled, really looks nice. But on the other hand, I think that's being on the practical side. Again, going back to what, you guys talk about a lot, is being good stewards, is just realizing, like Lee said, that it's okay. We all have to start somewhere. I mean, my first house was a little brick ranch. Just, somebody had taken out the garage doors and it kind of enclosed it in. There's just things about it that it was a foreclosure. So there's a lot of things that, I think have that conversation first before you go. This is what I would say, before you go start looking over homes and fall in love with a home way out of your price range. I think that's super important. You need to be practical first, because a lot of people, I get some Zillow leads and they look, man, I want to look at this $500,000 house, and we'll talk through a few things, and then one thing that I always do, and this is for anybody that reaches out to me, we'll do the same thing, but I want you to have the financial talk first before we even start looking at homes. Now, there's a lot of people that do the reverse, right? They've been, they look at Zillow and they get really, really attached to homes and heart set on something and move in. And then we had somebody we were talking to a couple weeks ago, really heart set on moving and doing something, but it just wasn't the time for them to buy yet. And so I think there was some heartbreak there. And so I would say let's really take those initial steps first. So what I would say is don't rush into it. Let's have that conversation that we talked about earlier. Let's ease into it. Let's hear your story. Let's hear what you want to do, and then see if it's possible now, which is great if it is. I mean, Lee and I have been able to close some homes in between 2 and 3 weeks. The way you can get a loan closed really quickly, or it may be down the road. It may be a year or so. And I've got people since I started February of 21 that I'm still keeping in contact with, and they'll be ready eventually, and we'll be ready to help them take that next step.
Okay. So coming at this from, this is information for anybody, naturally, of course, but as Christians, whether you are someone single, whether you're a husband and wife, whether you're just a blended family, grandma's, aunts, everybody's there, and they're just trying to figure this whole thing out. You're trying to be a good steward of what you have. You're trying to be the husband that provides. What do you, knowing that both of you guys are Christians, from what you guys are often helping people with, what have been those things that you've often had to say to individuals to help them to kind of stay focused? Because I'm hearing a lot of, this, and I remember the article. I remember it so vividly because it's funny that even in my field of counseling, I've had people come in and just feel like, life is just low. I can't even get a place for my family. And you start to ask questions, and it's like, I've always dreamed of having this, $600,000 house, but I can't get this. And I'm like, okay, there's a disconnect here. And so we have to sit down and, and say, hey, like I was hearing Mr. Brown was saying, you just bought this big car $800 a month is to me, it's a big car. It's a big car.
Yeah.
But what do you do? How would you say for us as Christians from a perspective of being good stewards and taking this information, what are those things that we need to be aware of in both y'all's perspective?
I think we kind of go back to the parable of the talents, where it talks about taking what you have and just being wise with it. And so that's one thing always, if somebody is a believer, and I've never had anybody turn down prayer yet. I'm up front with everybody that I talk to. Hey, I'm a former pastor, and kind of here's what I do now. I usually use the word blessed. I want them to know right up front that I give credit to God 100% for every penny. I use that word a lot, every penny. Just let people know where I stand. And as we get ready to have those conversations, look, I don't have a set script really when I get a lead call, or because there's a lot of people that I have relationships with, Facebook and churches I've served in, friends, that reach out to me. But a lot of the people that I've been able to convert into clients are people that I had never met before in my life. And so I think for me, I kind of go into that not necessarily having a set script, which a lot of the training they tell you to. Even in Lee's field too, they tell you to go right into this set script. You need to do this, do that. But I say a little quick prayer to myself as I'm answering every call. Just because, all right, Lord God, this and I take time to get to know the people and kind of what they want to do. I want them to earn They need to know who I am and be able to trust me, because they don't. I had one guy tell me it was a lead I received today, in fact. And the guy he lives in Florida now, and so he called in our brokerage. They patched him through to me, and he's like, "Look, I don't know you from Adam." He said, "But I trust you. I have a good connection with you." He said he went ahead and gave me the garage code to get into his house today, just to look around in it, kind of tell him what I thought. And so but I had taken the time before that to talk through some things and just find out kind of why he was wanting to move and kind of all that stuff. I don't jump straight into business. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big part of it, is just each and every call is different. Each and every situation is different. So some people want to jump right into the business of it. But some of them just want to, talk. And that's what I do. We spend pretty much, most of our day on the phone. I go by Lee's office and he's got his phone to his ear. He's going. And that's a good thing, because that means we're trying to help clients take that next step in the home buying process. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I always think back, if you're talking to someone who wants to be a good steward, who may or may not be struggling to get to that point of owning a home, and there's sometimes where I just think about Romans 12:1 and 12:2. Do not conform any longer to patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then I love where it says, so that you'll be able to test and approve God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. I love test and approve. To me, that is take a step, see if God's in it. If God's in it, take another step. If God's in that, take another step. Mm-hmm. If you take a step and you can see that God's kind of closing that door, or God's not there, then you can take a step back, test and approve God's good, pleasing, and perfect will for you. And not conforming to the pattern of this world. I'd read the article yesterday, then I saw on Fox 5. I think about it this morning. Most Americans face $10,000 in credit card debt. 40% think having debt is embarrassing. 33% say they keep how much they owe a secret. How can we, as believers, go against that? Is let's renew our mind to say we're not going to make it the norm to go into this credit card debt. So I can, or installment debt of a new car. I guess student loans, life happens sometimes, right? Life happens because we're young. Life happens because of health issues. Life happens because we make a mistake in finances. But how can we say, I'm just going to take a step now and see if God blesses that? Or, and maybe it is not eating out as much so you can save up, so you can ultimately achieve that goal. Maybe that next step is having a conversation with us, or having a conversation with somebody that you can trust. It blows me away how many people call me because they read online, they go, well, I don't have 20% saved. And guess what? You don't have to have 20%. You don't have to have 3.5%. You don't have to have 3%. In a lot of situations, you don't have to have any percent to put down. So take that step and just see what happens. And you've got people, there's a lot of misinformation online. People get really confused really easily.
And I really want you guys to, as you're talking, I'm sorry for it, but I really want you guys to be able to present probably some of the misinformation that's out there that just kind of makes people go, I'm never going to be able to do this.
Yeah, and I think I'll let Lee talk a little bit about these. But there is a lot of different loan programs that are available. And some of them are job specific. They really are when it comes to police. Help me out. Medical field, education.
Yeah, I've seen some of the police. I've seen recently the teachers.
Yeah. So but there are also a lot of other programs to help other buyers as well. So he mentioned 0% down. Then there's actually some loan programs that are location specific. A USDA loan that's 0%. But so let me just run through those real quick. So you have the VA loan, which is for veterans and family, right? And so then you have that's 0% down loan. So that's an amazing program for our veterans. It really is. We've been able to do a lot of those together. They can underwrite those pretty quickly, and really, it's what a blessing to help veterans who've already sacrificed so much for us. And then you have your conventional loan, and so he mentioned 20% down. So that's kind of what people think of when they hear the conventional is the 80-20, right? But there's all different kind of percentages you can go with a conventional, and that is dependent on credit score and where you can kind of go there. Then you have your FHA loan, which to me is an amazing loan program right now. He can tell you some things that have just recently changed with FHA loans, but that's typically 3.5% down. But there are also some programs too that'll help you with down payment assistance with FHA loans, which means you'll have to bring some money down for help with closing costs, but that 3.5% can be supplemented there, and he can talk you through that. And then you have I think I've already went through all. That's within the USDA loan, which is the 0% location specific. So you got those four, and he's got all different types of jumbo loans and different other things that as far as if it's over certain limits. But I know I'm giving you a lot, but I'm gonna let Lee talk about some of those down payment assistance. I know a lot of people ask about that. So tell us about down payment assistance and how that can affect these guys.
So I had a conversation with a single mom today that she's been renting a home. People that she's been renting a home from are going to sell, and so she needs to find somewhere to live. And from our conversation very early on, we knew that down payment was going to be an issue, right? Anytime somebody tells me that they have a challenge with down payment or they haven't, saved up money for down payment, we want to rule out the number one. We're going to ask you, are you a veteran? Right? Because veteran, the VA loan has no down payment, no mortgage insurance. It's an unbelievable setup for a veteran. So if you're a veteran, you need to take advantage of the veterans loan. Then we're going to kind of rule out USDA. USDA is population specific, so you're not going to get it in a larger downtown area. Where we're at right now in Hiram in Paulding County, you can't get it. But if you go out a little farther past 61, you can get a USDA loan. Out 61 towards Rockville.
Dallas, Rockville.
But then we're going to rule out those two first because there's no catches, there's no gotchas. Okay, one of the loans that we'll do is Georgia Dream, that will give you $10,000 more if you're in education or medical or if you're a policeman. All right, our public service in that way. It'll give you up to $12,500. I think that is. I need to double check. It just went up. So, but they basically will give you $10,000 to cover down payment and closing costs. It costs you a little bit to get that, but it's still a pretty good deal. Especially if it meets a need. They set the interest rate, which is pretty healthy.
You say cost, so tell them how that cost is factored in.
So
that's not anything they're bringing to the table.
No, you're not bringing it to the table. It gives you $10,000, but it's going to cost you probably a point. And how you get the rate from Georgia. But what ends up happening is they give you the $10,000 that gets put aside. You don't make payments on it, but when you sell the house later on, out of the equity from that house, you give the $10,000 back to the Department of Community Affairs. So they basically lend it to you. It don't make payments on it. It just kind of sits there. When you sell the house or you refinance the house, you give that money back so somebody else can use it. There are other down payment assistance programs. One of them that we're doing is Chinoa. It's from a bank out in Utah that they'll give you up to 5% of your down payment to go towards down payment or closing costs. There's a forgivable option where you can get that 5% forgiven after a pretty lengthy period of time being in that loan. And there's a repayable option that comes back to that. That one's a little different because it's a little easier to get when it comes to being flexible and qualifying. But the interest rate, they're going to make a little bit of money back off of that from charging you a higher interest rate. So while we always say we're going to rule out being a veteran or being USDA, there's no catches, there's no gotchas, there's nothing you have to pay back later. There's just no down payment on the USDA or veteran loan. So like I can literally, when I'm having this conversation with somebody on the phone who I'm talking to for the first time, when I start throwing out USDA, VA, FHA, conventional, I can feel them start to kind of zone out just because it's something that I talk about every single day, but it's hard to follow that. And so we have a tool that we can go, hey, I'm going to run a FHA versus USDA versus Georgia Dream Down Payment Assistance side by side. And I'm going to send that to you. And then while you're looking at that, we're going to have a phone call and we're going to walk through that together. So there are options available to you. So don't feel like you have to have that 10, 15, 20% down. But I say this, if you do have a down payment is really good, right? And everybody wishes they had it. But, some people don't want to come out of their pocket with a down payment. But a down payment is not a fee that you pay to a closing attorney. Then you lose that money. Down payment is almost like a savings account. So hopefully you buy the house for 3.5% down and then you sell it and the value's gone up $50,000 and you've paid it down. So you just turn that, $10,000 into $70,000 of equity down the line. So don't feel like a down payment is necessary. It's hard to get for first time home buyers, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a fee that you pay and you lose. It is an investment for real.
So I know we had kind of answered the question earlier, but I'm just kind of thinking, in fact, this will probably be more of a question because somebody had texted me and said, hey, me paying off my mortgage. I said, that's probably more for someone on a different end as far as finances and stuff. But I guess they were just trying to pay it off to get a new home. And they're like, what should be the strategy? Besides, we all know pay the mortgage off, of course, naturally. But like, should they go ahead and start having a conversation already about looking for that new home? Should they just focus more on taking care of that? Like, what should be their strategy? Because they're saying, like, we've been in a starter home and now we want to move to something, larger. So what would be their next step?
Right. And so I'll say, it happens every day and this person may know that process. If not, I'll just maybe speak to those that don't. So let's say you own a house and you owe $100,000. Okay. And that house is worth $250,000. All right. So at the closing table, that attorney is going to take that money that the buyer is putting into your house, that $250,000, and they're going to pay that $100,000 mortgage off for you. And so that happens at closing. So then you'll be left with that $150,000 equity. That then we would have, counted that was going to happen. We would have already talked to Lee and know how much money you wanted to put down. You would have already talked to your current mortgage company and seen how much you had to pay off to get that zeroed out. And so that's what we see a lot of days, that we do what's called a double closing on the same day. So you might close on the one you currently own in the morning and with the attorney, and then in the afternoon, we'll close on your new house, and you'll take that equity, that money, and it'll be wired either from attorney to attorney, or it'll be all at that same attorney's office, and that way it's there for that afternoon closing. But again, like Lee was saying, and I said earlier, it's time to buy is different for everybody. Okay. Because I am seeing a lot of people that want to downsize. I'm working with a couple of empty nesters, right now, where they're saying, hey, kids are gone. We're in our 50s. We want our forever home. We do want a ranch, right? We want that home on some acreage. And so I've got clients that we're working with on that. And so, so whatever time that you feel like, again, going back to all right, the Lord's given us this go. We have a peace about this. Let's have conversations. Let's see where it goes. But as far as that, you don't have to pay off your current mortgage to be able to buy your next house. And there's some people that are even blessed to be able to buy their next home before they sell their first one. That way they can move in when they want to, and they can, and that's all. It's debt to income ratio. And so we're working, with clients that they can do it that way. That we're able to buy their next house while their current house is listed for sale. And there's certain things you can do to put that money back in there with certain loan types, or we can have it listed and we can just time it where they both close on the same day or pretty close together. And so that's one thing that I do a lot, really, is have them stacked up on the same day. I'm helping somebody sell and buy, and then they're able to take care of it all on the same day. It's not maybe overwhelming for them, but it's not overwhelming for us because we do this every day. And the attorneys that we work with do this every day.
And so talk about, because I'm getting ready to close, and I was going to tell you guys about what we call the run and gun. That's that 5 minutes of just, if you had a chance to pour out some information and give it people. But talk about that process as far as like the lawyers being involved, because I know some people, and I remember one time when I was a youth leader at another church, and we were just talking about, basic things. And there were some people that was working in the career that you guys have. And they was explaining to the lawyers, and it was like, why do we have to have these lawyers? And I said, it's property. It's, so for some young people that may not understand it, or some people that may not understand it, like the lawyers get involved, what are their roles?
We can't do what we do without, or we could, but it would be a lot more steps, right? But real estate attorneys, there's real estate attorneys that's all they do all day, every day. They're not, doing this divorce thing, doing this domestic stuff. They're not criminal. They do real estate all day, every day. And my brokerage, Better Homes and Gardens, we have an affiliated attorney that we use, and those guys, even if it's something off deal that I'm doing, I can email these guys, and they help me right now with the deed for some guys, so we can get them started with Lee. But real estate attorneys are crucial. I mean, they're able to pull in title. See whose name's on the title, see if there's anything on the title of the house. And then they're able to help get that prepared for the next homeowner. The attorney does the closing. Closings usually take about an hour or so, depending on, the situation. But yeah, so when we say attorney, that's a great thing.
And that, when Clay says make sure there's no issues, it's make sure somebody didn't file a lien with that property. The lien usually stays with the property, not with the people who live there at the time. Right. So you don't want to buy a property, then go to sell it 10 years later and find out there's a lien on the property that you're responsible for. Yeah. So 9 times out of 10, like what the lawyers do is make sure that title is clean, and it's not really a big deal, but they're there to protect you, right? As somebody that's buying. But the times that there are issues with a title, man, what they do is really amazing to be able to help provide just peace of mind, get it filed to show that you are the rightful owner of that property, whether you buy it now and then selling 30 years from now, or passing on to your kids, or selling 5 years from now. So they make it legal, right?
Yeah,
with the county to show that you own that piece of land,
and that you're purchasing title insurance, and that way from that point on, they're saying that title's clear, and it will be from this point on. And if anything ever came back, then you would have what's called title insurance, and they would fight for you on that. But yeah, so we have some great attorneys that we work with here, and just multiple great attorneys in this community that we work with.
So for people that may not understand, like, because the moment you said just title insurance, I'm sitting there thinking of what type of insurance, again, young people, whoever it is, first get into, what type of insurance is going to be important to have? Is it something that just covers the house and the land? Is it something that just covers the people? Like, what type of insurance do people need to look for?
Well, I used to sell home and auto insurance too, so I can kind of speak a little bit to that. But one thing the mortgage company is, you've heard us use the word mortgage insurance, and that's something totally different. All right, you got mortgage insurance, and then you've got home insurance. All right, so the mortgage insurance, Yeah, it's protecting the lender. So that's amount that you pay each and every month. And like with conventional, once you get right at 20%, that goes away. And so, Lee can speak a little bit about what mortgage insurance is and why it's important. But home insurance is basically it protects your home and your property, right? And so that protects the lender as well. And so one thing you will have to have, and one thing Lee and his crew, they'll hit you up for it if we get close to a closing date and you haven't turned in your home insurance. That can hold up a closing, and it has. So that's one thing that they'll make sure they have. And, we can provide you with a list of people. I provide my clients. I've got some, there's all kinds of people in the area that, would be glad to quote your insurance. And so anyway, so it's, excuse me, those two things are things that we've said already, but you're right. It's good to stop and point those out.
Okay. We are at the 5-minute blast, and anybody who has been on here before, when we've, because I deal with apologetics and stuff, and we've gotten in there and we've talked about if there was a chance that the person on the other end had an opportunity to just kind of pour out some very important information, love on people, share some things that maybe people don't know. We talk about the 5-minute blast to give everybody just a chance. Sometimes people tag team, they just use it together. Some people are like, no, I want my 5 minutes. You can have yours. However y'all want to have it. If you had that opportunity, like even if God just said, hey, I need my people to hear this, or I need people to hear this, here's that 5-minute blast. I know we, got kids and other things, but I want you guys, whatever comes to mind or heart, just dealing with this topic, what would it be?
Well, I spoke about it a little bit earlier, but just kind of my reason for doing this. There's a lot of real estate agents that, they chase a lot of, they're in it for the money, right? And when I started this, and God led me in, I started this in February 2021, just decided, right off that, this is something that I wanted to provide for my family first and foremost, right? But also I wanted to continue. God had called me into ministry at a young age. And right now I'm not on full staff at a church. I serve at my current church. Shout out to Westgate Church in Powder Springs. That's where I know Reggie from. Great church. Westgate. So that's I'm in real estate for those reasons. I want to glorify God with all that I do. I want to provide for my family. And so it shocks a lot of realtors when I tell you, like, man, I don't care anything about being a millionaire right now. God has provided. I've got 4 kids, 10 and under, and I want to enjoy every second with them. I feel like I do stay pretty busy. I could probably do a lot more. Lee and I were just talking the other day about marketing, and kind of what we can do to really be able to connect with more people. And we're glad we jumped at this chance to do this.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and wondering if it's going to be like, people come and look at it. What the Spirit is already telling me is like, it's not a lot of people on here, but other people are going to come back and look at it and go, wait a minute, let me type this in.
Right. Yeah. And who knows how God may use this, but it's been a blessing. Just to be able to be here and share with Lee a little bit, because again, we have the same heartbeat. That's why I love working with him. Right out of the gate when I'm talking with a client, I ask him, hey, have you spoken to a lender yet? He's the first one that comes to mind because I know how he's going to take care of my clients, my people. These are people I'm already building a relationship with, and look, realtors and lenders often have a stereotype. Really, one is, lenders just want people that have that bank account full and 800 credit score, right? And, realtors just want to jump into somebody that wants to buy a house that same size. But, man, we've worked together and helped people buy a house, $125,000. And, right now we've got a client over $1 million, so we're everywhere in between. We're going to take every door that God opens, and we're going to explore it. We're going to be good stewards for our families. We do a lot. We coach, help our kids coach ball. We're involved in our churches.
Checking out some of the pictures.
Yeah, and so those kind of things there. We stay busy. This is important for us. It's our ministry. It's our way of living. But it's not the most important thing for either one of us, for sure. And so I'll let Lee kind of follow that up and tell you a little bit about as he takes his time. But this is what I do now. I love it. That's one thing. As I'm talking to people, I'm like, look, I love what I get to get up and do every day. I love showing homes. I love doing research for things. I love waking up in the morning and seeing my notifications from a realtor and for for Zillow, and just being able to see new homes hitting the market, and excited to kind of see how that plays out with my current clients and clients that I may get a call from that day. Real estate's always something different, and so it really is. I never know what to expect on a current day. I mean, the other day had a client. I had a house they absolutely loved, and we were under contract, and just got under contract, and then the house that they originally looked at, that they fell in love with and talked about ever since, came back on the market. And the realtor called me, so we were able then to transition back to that house. And that's one thing. There's all kinds of ways. If we will have home inspections. We will take care of it. We'll make sure that this house you're buying is going to be a good investment for you.
Oh, I wanted to ask about that, and I'm sorry. I was like, man, 5-minute blast, but I was like,
you're good. I got a little bit longer.
Home inspection. What goes on with that? Because I had some people like, I was working with a client. She had, one of her goals was to get a home, and she got her home, and she wasn't very familiar with the home inspection. Her dad talked to her and was like, you got to be careful who you have come in. Like, what are some of those things as far as home inspections are concerned?
Yeah. So, all right. So the process, let's say you get with Lee, you get approved. He sends me a letter saying this client is approved. We ended up, sending in the offer. It gets accepted. We're going to have what's called the inspection period. And so you might hear us call it DD, or due diligence. And so basically, what that is it's a time for you to do the inspection on that house. It's a time for you to make sure that house, the HVAC systems, septic, or all the plumbing, all those things are in good condition. And I work with a couple of really good inspectors. That one in particular, shout out to Justin Cole at Sharp Eye Inspections. Really, really good inspector. I use a lot. And so Justin is great, one of the highest rated in this area. And I'm able to tell people that. But yeah, he and his crew, man, they will inspect every inch of that house. If it's a basement, they're going to look, make sure there's no mold. There's no moisture in the no cracks in the foundation. They're going to give me the age of the hot water heater, all those things they're going to check. They're going to turn all the water faucets on at one time, make sure all the plumbing's good. They're going to, just all throughout the house, they're going to look, make sure there's no roof leaks. They're going to fly a drone above the house and just take a look at the roof. That's part of what a home inspection is. And so that $400 or $500, depending on the size of the house, let's say that $500, man, that could save you a lot of money in the long run. And it can help us in negotiations, with the seller. As we try to figure out, all right, so the price is this. Do we want to either ask for less money now because of these things that need to be repaired that came up in the home inspection, or do we want to ask for a credit, for basically that money so that the buyer can then do those repairs? So that's kind of what that process looks like. And then if the seller agrees to that, we both sign off on that, and then we move toward closing with either them doing the repairs or us getting that credit.
Okay. And that's I was sitting there thinking, like, is it other stuff? And as soon as you said home inspection, I said, and I remember the client I was working with, and just she described it as a nightmare. She literally said, like, she had to, I think it was 3 times, the home that she wanted, they had to walk through it 3 times because the person who was selling it, it was something about the foundation. And her father was like, look, if that foundation's got some serious problems, you may have to give that up. But, they was able to get it fixed and everything, and it passed all it, inspection and everything. And she's been living in wonderful. And that was one of her goals, actually, to write off on her, as far as what she's doing. So we're with you, Mr. Brown, at 5-minute blast. If there's anything that you wanted just to pour out to people, what would it be?
Well, you kind of took my 5 minutes. I'm just kidding with you.
That's what preachers do.
To me, it, Clay moved last year. I moved last year. It's really interesting how important home is. The house that I bought first, I bought in 2009. I was a single youth pastor, And then I lived there by myself for probably 4 or 5 years. I have to do the math exactly. But then I got married, and I had 3 kids, and that house got really small really fast. But it amazed me. I never dreamed in a million years that I would live there that long, or that I would start my family in that home. And it was really hard to leave that and then transition into a new home. I was thinking about that first payment was hard to get used to back in 2009. And then all of a sudden you get used to it. Then you start making that house that becomes your home. And then you have a wife, then you have kids, and then you have dogs, then you have those memories. And it really is an honor for us. It's taken me, I don't know how y'all have been, but having been in that home with so many great memories, moving into a new home, it takes a little while for that to start feeling like home. But what's interesting is, a home is much more than somewhere that you're just paying a mortgage or a shelter over your head. Just even if it's a little bit scary, even if it's a little bit intimidating, taking that step, or you think you can or you think you can't. It's really fun, and we're really blessed by what we get to do to help people have that place where they're going to raise their family, or they're going to downsize, or they're going to do their life in that home. So pretty cool, setup that we get to do. If we can help you in any way, definitely reach out to us.
Definitely. So we are getting ready to close. And what I would make sure, if you want to catch up with Clay Thomas with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, that number is actually going to be 470-433-5494. I'm going to try to type that super fast in a few moments so we can get that on there, because you may be someone who's already saying like, hey, I'm looking at this information. This is good stuff. And then, of course, for Lee Brown and his business, North Star Lending, that's in Marietta, it's off of the West Cobb end. That number is going to be 7705972123. We've gotten a lot of people that have given some feedback. I feel like this is going to be one of those videos that maybe people want to just actually sit down and just take notes and write stuff down and then go, okay, yeah, that's what we want to do with that. So I want to make sure, like I said, I'm putting these numbers in because I want people to grab this stuff and go with it. So while I'm doing that, also, any other shout outs to any other business partners or people that work with you guys that you would definitely want them to, have the information that they will so desire.
Yeah, one thing that I would say is, look, even if you are in a different state, right now I'm just licensed in Georgia, but even if you were in a different state, my brokerage, Better Homes and Gardens, and I can get you connected with and get screened for you real estate professionals all across the United States. And so, I would be glad to have that initial conversation, with you, and then, then I can help get you paired with, a real estate professional in your state. So keep that in mind too. Yes, I'm licensed anywhere in Georgia. I usually work within about 30 minutes of the metro area. But man, I can get you referred, to a real estate professional anywhere in the nation. I'll be glad to do that. Simple form, and that again, that's also a blessing, financially to my family as well. As you're going through that process, and Lee can help you with anywhere in the southern part of the United States, southeastern. So I gave Reggie his website earlier. You can check that out. I think it's going on the bottom of the screen too, so you'll have that. There's a simple link on there. If you're ready, you can click on apply, and that goes directly to Lee, and so he'll be able to see y'all can have that initial conversation. But I mean, really call us. I mean, that's our direct cell numbers for both of us. That's Lee always says, hey, this is the same number my wife's going to text me on. Mine's the same way. All right. And now my 10-year-old daughter too. But give us a call, shoot us a text. We'd love to connect with you. Love anything we can do to help brothers and sisters out as you try to figure. There's no dumb question except what, Lee? The one you don't ask. Yeah, that's the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. And we are wide open. I promise you, we will not make you feel dumb because we were there. I told you our first real estate experience. I was completely clueless. But I had people that walked alongside me, some good brothers in Christ. It was when I was a youth pastor, some good deacons, elders at that church was also a realtor. So, man, he really, shout out to Gray Wynn if you somehow happen to see this in North Alabama. Gray and his wife, man, they really took time and they really walked us through this process. So it's been a joy tonight. Anytime I get to hang out with Lee's fun. We catch lunch together and he keeps me updated on what's going on in the mortgage world. And, we swap stories and we talk together. I may talk to you some days more than I do my wife. It's crazy, man.
Love you too, buddy.
Yeah. In a brotherly Christian way, yeah. So, we fight together.
So we are done, and like I always like to do, before I give thanks and pray with you guys, they do this to me every time. Let's talk about what's happening this weekend. Of course, we're currently happening right now. Dr. Michael Brown is actually having his debate with Corey Minor, and they're talking about the once save, always save situation. And that's been something that's kind of been brewing for a while. Dr. Eric Mason put out his book, Urban Apologetics Part 2, which people have been looking for an entire year. It is out now. There's also several other books that have come out. I cannot go through that list. I'm not doing it tonight, y'all. Y'all not doing this to me tonight. So I will share with y'all later on some other stuff that's coming out. Isaiah Jones and also Jesse Walsh, they're actually going over the event that happened with Westboro Church and the Satanists, that when they came together in that location. What happened, they're actually going through that. There are some other events that are coming up as far as like conferences and everything. We're going to be talking about that all this weekend. Look out for the reassembling, some new stuff that he's putting out. CMB Ambassador has been dealing with the book of Hebrews. Churches that are out there doing some big stuff. There's a big youth conference coming up very soon up in Virginia. We'll be listing information about that. Westgate, that is always doing stuff. Shout out to Westgate. What church do you go to, Mr. Brown?
North Star Church.
North Star Church. I'm, check those areas, check those things out. I am finished. Look out for it is the last day of Men's Health Month, but there'll be a lot of people closing out tomorrow, including myself. And I think that's all I can list. I can't do it all, y'all, tonight. So, but we're going to definitely hit it up next time. So thank you again, Mr. Clay Thomas and Mr. Lee Brown. Please check out those sites. I'm going to put them up here again for Mr. Lee Brown, his business, which is Lee Brown Mortgage, as you can see here. But also it talks about North Star Lending. That information there. They're located in Marietta, the West Cobb area. And then, of course, with somebody already shooting fireworks already. Not even got there yet. And then, of course, with Clay Thomas, Better Homes and Gardens, and real estate in Hiram, Georgia. And you see that information there. And you guys can always come back to this video. It's going to be on the Immersion website, but I'm also going to go shoot it to Mr. Thomas's Facebook, and he can share it with Mr. Brown, and they can share it with as many people as they want. And we've had a lot of people say thank you. I appreciate you guys again. And just, this is what this platform set up for. The next time we will be doing on this platform, bringing in some people just talking about just Christianity 101 and how to share it with youth and young adults, how to help parents. And then we're going to bring in some other people dealing with some physical health stuff. We're bringing in some doctors going to be talking about some things, and then we'll bring in some other people talking about finance and stuff. This is what we do here on this platform. Other than that, if anybody feels led to pray, other than that, I'm going to pray and we're going to be out.
Go ahead, brother. That's fine.
All right, that shall be me then. So if everybody just go ahead and pray. Lord, we just thank you again for just bringing us together and just all the vast information that we be able to just go back and read it and just, absorb it. We pray that you will just bless the businesses there, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Brown, that you will just also open up doors for them. Lord, even through this video, is not ours. It's really your opportunity that you just show yourself strong and mighty. And we thank you and praise your name, Jesus. Amen. Amen. It has been a blessing. You guys, please hang out if you can. We are finished with this live. Please come back and watch this. Come back to us next time. It's stuff going on all weekend with Cross Media and with other platforms. It has been a pleasure. Mr. Clay Thomas, Mr. Lee Brown. I'm Doc. I'm out.